Look in verse 30. It says, for by thee I have run through a troop. By my God, I have leaped over walls. Now before we shout with David in verse 30, let us go back and look how he humbled himself. In verse 1 through 7, David started out by acknowledging that this song is not about me, but it's about the Lord who delivered me. In verse 1, David said, and David, he spoke unto the Lord the words of this song in the day that the Lord delivered him out of the hand of his enemies and out of the hand of Saul. The reason why God can exalt some of us is because we're already lifted up with the I syndrome. Haven't got any help in here. And all of us have seen people, and we know other people that have the I syndrome. They say things like this: I sung that song, didn't I sing it? Haven't got any help in here. I said, haven't got any help in here. I prayed for them and they was healed. Haven't got any help in here. Haven't got any help in here. I preached and to the glory filled the house. And they said, was I clean or what? They got the I syndrome. You too caught up on yourself. It's not about you. It is not about me. But it's all about Jesus. Look at somebody and say, neighbor, it's not about you, but it's about Jesus. It reminds me, Pastor Tate, of a story I heard of a young man. He went off to college, and God called him to the ministry. Just before he left, after he graduated, he came to church. He stood up doing testimony service and began to testify. He said, I graduated top of my class. I graduated with a 4.0 average. Yeah. And the pastor invited him to speak the next week. And the boy studied all week. And after he had preached, he walked out of the church with his head down. And the pastor called to the young man. He said, young man, he turned around with tears in his eyes. He said, I don't understand. I studied so hard. The pastor said, yeah, but the problem is you walked in with your head high and you walked out with your head low. If you would have came in with your head low, you would have walked out with your head high. Ain't the Lord all right? The Bible said, whosoever exalted himself shall be made a base, but whosoever humbled himself shall be exalted. Turn to your neighbor and say, neighbor, say, oh neighbor, if you start out humble, you'll end up exalted. Ain't the Lord all right? Listen at David, how he humbled himself. David prayed. David said, Lord, save me from violence. David said, save me from my enemies. David said, ungodly men have made me afraid. David said, death, have compassion on me. The sorrows of hell around about me. The snares of death, they have offended me. But David said, in my distress, I called on the Lord. And I gotta ask you a question. Is there anybody in here that ever called on the Lord. If you was in trouble, have you called on your God? Well, let me ask you another question. Did he show up right on time? So in verse 1, David humbled himself. But in verse 30, David was lifted up. He cried, oh Lord, I feel like running through a troop. But my God, I leaped over the wall. Tell your neighbor, it ain't over. So God says it's over. Get ready. This year is going to be the best year. So get ready, because God is going to lift you up. God is going to take you to another level. Tell your neighbor, get ready for your blessing. Tell your neighbor, there's a blessing with your name on it. Somebody say glory. Somebody say glory. Somebody say glory. In spite of what you're going through, every time God elevates you to another level, you gotta face, you gotta fight another devil. Yeah. Secondly, y'all sister, I'm trying to get there. Secondly, Pastor Tate, the reason you and Lady Tate have been successful in these 16 years, yeah, you recognize one thing, that there is no God like my